Ladies and gentlemen, when the noise of the world has exhausted you, when you have given your words, your love, your time to people who barely understood what you offered, there comes a moment when you must retreat, not in defeat, but in quiet triumph. Old age is that hidden door. Many fear it, thinking it robs them of youth and relevance. But in truth it hands back what was always yours, your life, unfiltered by the demands of others. Stay with me till the end of this talk, because what you hear now may just free you from the silent burdens you've carried for years. The burden of needing to be understood, the burden of explaining yourself, the burden of being available to those who would drain your spirit dry. As the years pass, your value does not shrink, it condenses, becoming purer, rarer, more potent. And this purity must be protected. How? Through silence, through deliberate absence from meaningless noise, through focus, not on fixing the world, but on tending the garden within. There is no need to announce your growth. You do not owe your history to those who never stayed to read its pages. In old age, you have permission, no, you have a responsibility to guard your remaining days like precious gold. Give it only to what feeds your peace. Give it only to what nurtures your inner calm. Speak when your words can heal, otherwise sit in the power of your silence. When you stay silent, the world listens differently. People wonder what you think. Let them wonder. Let your silence become a mirror that shows them who they truly are. Let your stillness unsettle the restless. Let your quiet protect you from the chaos of opinions that have no weight in your life anymore. Focus on yourself. Tend to your thoughts like a gardener tending to old roots. Pull out what is dead, plant what is true. Sit with yourself in long, undisturbed moments. Watch how peace grows in the soil of your solitude. You have walked enough roads for others. Now walk slowly down the one that leads inward. No audience, no applause. Just you and the sound of your own breath carrying you back home to yourself. This is not isolation, this is not bitterness. This is wisdom. This is the gentle courage of an old soul who no longer needs the world's permission to rest in silence. If you remember nothing else from these words, remember this. In the final chapters, the loudest power is your quiet. The greatest freedom is your focus. And the richest love is the love you give yourself, silently, unapologetically, completely. Stay silent, focus deeply, be free. Aging is not about loss, but about reclaiming what truly matters, your time, your mind, and your soul. So many people approach old age with dread, imagining it as a season of decline, a chapter where everything slips through their fingers. They fear losing youth, strength, beauty, and the energy that once made them feel invincible. But what they fail to see is that aging strips away only what is no longer necessary. The noise, the pretending, the endless striving to be seen or heard in places that never really mattered. When you are young, you scatter your time like seeds in the wind. You give pieces of yourself to people, places, and pursuits that often don't deserve you. You run after dreams that are not really yours. You wear masks to fit in. You bite your tongue to keep the peace. You say yes when you wish you'd said no. Life, for the young, is a continuous performance, a dance of proving, pleasing, and pushing forward, often without knowing why. But when you grow old, something sacred happens, if you allow it. Life calls you back to yourself. The noise softens. The masks fall off. Your time becomes your own again. Not because the world suddenly respects your boundaries, but because you finally do. Old age becomes a sanctuary for the soul. When you accept that you no longer have to explain, chase, or convince anyone of your worth, you've lived enough years to see the pattern. People come and go, opinions shift like sand, and the only constant is the quiet truth you carry inside. This is the hidden gift of aging, the reclamation of your time. The hours you once surrendered to the demands of others can now be offered to your own well-being. You wake when you wish, you move at your own pace, you choose the company you keep, or you choose none at all. The pressure to perform dissolves, replaced by the freedom to simply be. There is no longer a need to impress. Instead, there is a gentle invitation to sit with yourself and ask what truly matters now. Your mind, too, finds new territory in old age. Perhaps the sharp edges of ambition soften, but in their place grows a deeper understanding. The mind becomes a garden where you can finally pull out the weeds, regrets, grudges, petty worries. You see the foolishness of old conflicts that once kept you awake at night. You realize how many of your fears never came true. With age, the mind stops racing ahead and begins to rest in the present. The past becomes a teacher, not a chain. The future becomes a gentle possibility, not an anxious chase. And the present moment, so overlooked in youth, becomes the richest place you know. Most of all, aging calls you to reclaim your soul. In the quiet of old age, you hear what you once drowned out with busyness and noise. You feel the subtle ache of your own spirit, asking for peace. Maybe it's the longing to forgive yourself for past mistakes. Maybe it's the desire to reconnect with something larger. Call it nature, God, the universe, the deep silence within. In old age, you have time to sit beneath a tree and feel the wind on your face without hurrying to the next task. You have time to watch a sunrise and feel its warmth on your skin. You have time to close your eyes and listen to the quiet voice that has always whispered, "You are enough." Aging is not about losing what made you who you are. It is about finding what was buried beneath all the things you thought you had to be. It is about gathering the scattered pieces of yourself, forgiving the restless child you once were, blessing the mistakes that shaped you, and finally resting in the simple truth. You are here, alive and free, to live these final chapters on your terms. This is why old age is not something to fear, but to honor. It is not the closing of a door, but the opening of one that has always waited for you. The door that leads inward to a home you never truly left, but often forgot. When you step through it, you find your time, your mind, and your soul waiting patiently, ready to be yours again. And in that quiet reclaiming, you become whole, not because you have more, but because you finally need so little to feel complete. In old age, silence becomes your greatest ally. It shields you from unnecessary noise and drama. There is a subtle power in realizing you no longer need to respond to every voice that calls your name. When you are young, silence can feel uncomfortable, even threatening. It is often mistaken for weakness, passivity, or disinterest. But as you grow older, you discover that silence is not emptiness. It is protection. It is a shield you forge with your own wisdom, strong enough to keep out the chaos of a world that feeds on endless chatter and meaningless conflict. When you were younger, perhaps you felt a constant pull to explain yourself. Every word spoken against you demanded a defense. Every misunderstanding felt like an attack you needed to correct. You believed you owed people explanations for your choices, your boundaries, your dreams. And so, your energy scattered in all directions, trying to set the record straight with people who were never really listening. But there comes a time when you realize that speaking too much often brings you more trouble than relief. Words once set free can be twisted and turned, used against you by those who delight in stirring the pot. You learn, sometimes painfully, that not every question deserves an answer, and not every insult needs a rebuttal. Silence becomes your wise friend, stepping in where your old self would have wasted precious breath. Silence does not mean weakness. It is the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, and I don't need your approval to be at peace. When you stay silent in the face of provocation, you do not shrink. You expand inward, reclaiming the energy that would have been lost to pointless arguments. You protect your mind from the poison of gossip and negativity. You keep your dignity intact, refusing to wrestle with pigs in the mud where no one emerges clean. In old age, silence can mend wounds that words only deepen. When families argue, sometimes the elder who stays quiet becomes the steady anchor others eventually drift back to. When friends drift away, silence makes room for the right ones to return, or for better souls to find you. When the world demands that you pick a side in every debate, your silence becomes a quiet rebellion, a way of saying, I choose my peace over your noise. There is another layer to this gift of silence. It allows you to hear what you could not hear before. The more you hold your tongue, the more you begin to notice what truly matters. You hear the tremor in someone's voice that reveals their pain behind harsh words. You hear the truth in your own heart before you speak words you might regret. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness, a deep listening to the life within and around you. There will be people who misunderstand your silence. Some will poke at it, trying to provoke a reaction. They will say you have nothing to say because you are afraid or indifferent. Let them believe what they wish. Their stories about you are not your burden to carry. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them fill the empty spaces with their own noise. You owe no one your energy. You owe yourself your peace. When you sit in silence, you step out of the cycle of reaction. You watch how others exhaust themselves with constant talking, constant explanations, constant complaints. You observe the drama swirl around you like a storm you no longer have to stand in. You find shelter in your stillness, untouched by the winds that once tore you apart. With time, your silence becomes a kind of language. Those who truly see you understand what it means. They know it is not indifference but mastery. They know it is not retreat but strength. They know that within your quiet is a deep well of understanding, a space where nothing trivial can survive. And if they do not understand, that too is fine. Silence is not there for their comfort, but for your protection. When you reach the age where your years outnumber your illusions, stay silent when the world clamors for noise. Stay silent when your heart tells you a word spoken now will only feed conflict. Stay silent when you know your truth needs no witness but yourself. In that silence, you will find freedom. In that freedom, you will find peace. And in that peace, you will remember the rarest gift old age offers: the right to live your days unbothered by the noise that once stole your sleep and scattered your soul. Focusing inward is not selfishness. It's self-respect, earned through decades of living and learning. In youth, the world teaches you that to be good, you must be available. You must give yourself away freely. Your time, your attention, your care. Even when it empties you out, you grow up believing that to put yourself first is an act of selfishness, a betrayal of duty to family, friends, society. You're taught to measure your worth by how much of yourself you pour into others. So you say yes when you wish you could say no. You stay when you wish you could leave. You give when you have nothing left. But the beauty of growing older is that you begin to see through this quiet lie. You learn that those who truly benefit from your endless giving rarely notice what it costs you. You see how people come to expect your energy on demand, never asking if you are okay, never wondering what you hold inside while you hold them up. It takes decades of these small, invisible betrayals, betraying your own needs for the comfort of others, to finally wake up and say, no more. Focusing on yourself is not about turning away from love or shutting out the world. It is about returning home to the only person who has walked with you every single step of the way. You. When you were younger, you may have thought self-focus was a luxury you couldn't afford. There were children to raise, partners to please, parents to care for, jobs to hold down. But in old age, the story changes. The world that once demanded so much from you slowly grows quiet. The children grow up. The job ends. The people who needed you daily drift away to live their own stories. And suddenly, you stand at the edge of this freedom you never thought you'd have. Time for yourself. This is where so many struggle. After years of living for others, they look inward and find a stranger. They don't know how to sit alone in a room without needing to busy themselves with someone else's problems. They fear the silence, because in it they must face the parts of themselves they buried under duty and distraction. But this fear is just the first step. Once you push through it, you find that focusing inward is not empty, it is not cold. It is a warm return to a self you abandoned, but who never abandoned you. You learn to sit with your thoughts without judgment. You learn to forgive yourself for the mistakes you made when you didn't know better. You listen to your own needs, the need for rest, for space, for joy, for simplicity. You begin to see that your value was never in how much you gave away, but in how honestly you can live with yourself when there is no one left to perform for. People will still whisper that you've grown selfish. They may say you've changed. They are right. You have. You have traded pleasing for peace, exhaustion for ease, noise for quiet. You have learned that if you do not protect your time, your mind, and your spirit, no one else will. And this protection is not a fortress that locks others out. It is a garden wall that keeps your soul safe enough to flourish. When you focus inward, you also discover how little you actually need from the world outside. You do not crave the same recognition, the same validation, the same noisy approval. You become a friend to yourself. You wake up and ask, what do I need today to feel whole? Sometimes the answer is a quiet walk alone, the sun on your skin. Sometimes it is sitting in silence with a cup of tea, feeling your breath steady. Sometimes it is simply saying no. No to conversations that drain you. No to obligations that rob your peace. No to people who think your life is theirs to shape. This kind of inward focus does not make you cold. It makes you clearer, kinder in ways that matter. You become more present when you do choose to give. You listen without resentment. You offer your help freely because it comes from a place of fullness, not duty. You stop expecting the world to pour into you what you can now give to yourself. Old age is not the closing of doors, it is the opening of the door you have kept locked for too long, the one that leads back to your own heart. And once you stand there facing yourself, you realize that this focus is not selfishness at all. It is the deepest self-respect, a final act of love for the one soul that has never left your side. The less you explain yourself, the freer you become from the misunderstandings of others. There is a strange habit we carry for much of our lives, the need to explain who we are, what we do, and why we do it. It begins early. As children, we explain to parents and teachers, seeking permission, hoping for approval. As young adults, we explain to friends, lovers, employers, strangers, anyone whose opinion we believe might shape our worth. We justify our choices, our dreams, our mistakes. We repeat our reasons, hoping to be seen and understood, afraid that silence will make us invisible or judged unfairly. But the truth is, no matter how carefully you explain yourself, people will still see you through the narrow window of their own understanding. You could speak the same truth 1,000 ways, but if someone is determined to twist your words, they will. If they want to misunderstand you, they will. And each time you feel that sting of being misread or misjudged, you rush in with more explanations, more words, hoping that this time they'll see you clearly, but they rarely do. There comes a point, usually as you grow older, when you realize how much life you've spent talking to walls. How many arguments have ended with you feeling drained, unheard, more misunderstood than before? How many times have you lost sleep, replaying conversations in your head, wishing you'd said more, said it better, defended yourself perfectly? How many times did you forget that your peace is worth more than being right in someone else's eyes? With age, a quiet understanding settles in. Explanations are a gift, not an obligation. You do not owe anyone your story in 1,000 pieces just to make them comfortable with who you are. You do not have to untangle every misunderstanding, clarify every rumor, or soften your truth for the fragile ego of another. You can stand in your silence and let people believe what they want, because what they believe does not change who you are. When you stop explaining, you free yourself. You reclaim the energy that once spilled out in long justifications. You learn to let others sit with their assumptions. If they care to know you, they will ask and listen. If they do not, your explanations would not have reached them anyway. You discover the power in a simple statement. This is my choice. Nothing more. No footnotes, no backstory, no apology tucked between your words. Some people will call your quiet arrogance. They will poke at your silence, bait you into defending yourself, hoping to drag you back into the old dance of over-explaining. But you learn that silence can be the strongest answer. It is not coldness, it is mastery over your own energy. You watch their questions bounce off the walls of your stillness. You see how uncomfortable people become when they can't provoke you into defending your life to them. And slowly, you realize that what you once feared, being misunderstood, no longer terrifies you. It liberates you. What's misunderstood about you no longer belongs to you. It belongs to those who misunderstand. Let them carry that weight while you walk lightly, unburdened by the endless loop of words. The less you explain, the clearer your life becomes. You live it rather than narrate it. You walk it rather than justify each step. You act from your truth rather than arguing your truth to the deaf ears of the world. This freedom touches every corner of your days. You find you have more time, precious time because you no longer spend hours revisiting old conversations. You sleep easier because your mind is no longer drafting imaginary explanations for people who wouldn't listen anyway. You wake up feeling lighter because your life belongs to you, not to the opinions that orbit you like restless moths. And something beautiful happens in the space where explanations once lived. Peace. The peace of knowing that your truth does not need permission. The peace of watching misunderstandings rise and fall like waves, while you remain steady on the shore of your own knowing. The peace of realizing you have nothing to prove, and even if you did, you no longer wish to. This is the quiet dignity of old age. To stand firm in who you are, without the need to be endlessly translated for others. To trust that your actions, your silence, your steady presence speak louder than any carefully crafted justification. To know that the right people will feel your heart without you having to carve it open for them. And the ones who never cared to see you clearly, let them look through their own fog. You have better things to do than clear their windows. You have a life to live, and that life, finally, fully, is yours. Solitude in old age is not loneliness, but a sanctuary where wisdom matures and peace settles. There is a quiet difference between being alone and feeling lonely, though when we are young, we often confuse the two. To be alone once felt like a punishment, a silence too heavy to bear, a void that demanded to be filled with noise, company, distraction. So we surrounded ourselves with people, chatter, plans, and invitations, all to keep solitude at bay. The world told us that to be alone was to be unloved, unwanted, or somehow incomplete. Yet as the years pass and life peels back the illusions we cling to, we start to see solitude for what it truly is. Not a prison, but a garden. A hidden place where the soul can breathe without expectation, where the mind can untangle itself without interruption. In youth, solitude may feel like exile. In old age, it becomes a homecoming. It is here in the gentle quiet of our own company that the wisdom we gathered through decades of living begins to blossom. We spend so much of our lives entangled in the needs and voices of others. We adjust ourselves to fit into families, friendships, workplaces. We bend, we yield, we soften our edges so that we do not disturb the comfort of those around us. And sometimes we lose ourselves completely in the roles we play. The caretaker, the provider, the friend who is always there. The self that longs for stillness is buried under obligations and noise. But old age, if we allow it, sets us free from that entanglement. People who once demanded every part of us move on, or they too grow quieter. Responsibilities that once weighed heavily begin to lift. The children we raised begin families of their own. The jobs that needed our constant energy fade into memory. And suddenly a rare space opens, empty at first glance, but in truth, full of possibilities. This is where solitude waits, not as an enemy, but as a patient friend. In this space, you are no longer forced to wear the masks that once protected you. There is no audience to impress, no conversation to dominate, no performance to maintain. You can sit with your thoughts and watch them drift by like clouds. You can revisit your memories, not to dwell on regrets, but to gather lessons you missed in the rush of living. You can listen to your heartbeat, steady and unhurried, reminding you that you are here, fully here, and that your presence alone is enough. People may worry when they see you alone. They might say, "Come out more. Don't isolate yourself. Don't be lonely." But what they often do not understand is that this solitude is chosen, not forced. It is not the bitter silence of abandonment, but the sweet hush of self-return. You have sat at crowded tables, you have heard enough voices to fill lifetimes. Now you savor the rare gift of hearing your own. In solitude, your senses wake up again. A morning cup of tea tastes more vivid when you drink it in silence. The sun feels warmer on your skin when you stand alone in your garden, noticing how it slips through the leaves. A simple walk becomes a pilgrimage, a return to the temple of your own awareness. The smallest moments grow rich when they are not diluted by the constant chatter of others' needs. In this sanctuary, your wisdom has space to breathe. The insights that were drowned out by noise come to the surface, like stones appearing at low tide. You remember what really matters. You see clearly who truly cared and who merely passed through your life for what they could take. You feel gratitude for the simple things, the breath in your lungs, the roof over your head, the calm that rests in your chest like a gentle flame. Solitude, when embraced, is where peace settles its roots. It does not need grand gestures. It does not demand that you isolate yourself completely. It asks only that you honor the part of you that thrives in quiet. And when you do choose to step back into the company of others, you bring with you a presence that is calm, grounded, unshakable. People feel it when you speak less but mean more, when you smile without needing to be seen, when you listen deeply because you are no longer distracted by the noise within. In these later years, do not fear your solitude. Guard it like a secret garden. Visit it daily. Let it restore you, guide you, and remind you that you are whole, not because of the world's applause, but because you have become your own companion. In that sanctuary, loneliness dissolves, replaced by a quiet companionship with yourself, the truest friendship you will ever know. Protect your energy fiercely. You no longer owe explanations or justifications for your peace. As the years pass and you move into the quieter seasons of life, you begin to see how precious your energy truly is, how fragile, how limited, and how easily it can be stolen if you don't guard it like something sacred. When you were younger, you may have believed your energy was limitless. You could spend hours listening to other people's complaints, rushing to fix problems that were never really yours to fix, giving comfort to those who took your kindness for granted. You poured your strength into the cracks of other people's lives, hoping your sacrifice would earn you love or loyalty in return. And maybe for a time you thought that was what it meant to be good, to be endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly willing to exhaust yourself so others wouldn't have to feel their own discomfort. You believed your peace could wait until everyone else was settled. But as you grow older, you learn that life doesn't reward you for draining yourself dry. It simply keeps asking for more. People who see that you don't protect your energy will keep knocking at your door, not out of malice, but out of habit, because you have trained them to believe you will always open it, no matter how tired you are. Then comes the turning point. A day, a year, a subtle shift, you begin to feel the cost. The conversations that once felt like duty now feel heavy. The small talk, the gossip, the complaints that circle the same old stories, draining your spirit, begin to weigh you down in ways you can no longer ignore. You realize that peace is not just a pleasant idea. It is survival, it is your birthright, and you do not need to earn it through exhaustion. You begin to draw quiet lines. You do not slam doors or make loud declarations. You simply stop explaining yourself. You stop justifying why you don't answer every call or reply to every message. You stop apologizing for declining invitations that pull you into noise you no longer wish to hear. You understand that no is a complete sentence, not the beginning of a negotiation or a doorway to guilt. Some people will notice your shift and push back. They will question your distance, accuse you of being cold or distant. They will tug at your old habits, hoping to drag you back into the familiar dance of overgiving. Let them pull. You owe them nothing but silence. Your energy is yours now, yours to spend on what feeds your spirit, yours to protect from what drains it. And as you stand your ground, something remarkable happens. You see who respects your peace and who only valued your open door. You see who comes closer, not to drain you, but to share in your quiet, to match your calm with theirs. The noise falls away, and what remains are people and moments that nourish you rather than deplete you. Protecting your energy does not mean shutting out the world entirely. It means you choose where your spirit flows. You choose when to listen deeply and when to walk away. You choose when to hold space for someone in need and when to trust that they must hold themselves. This is not selfishness. It is wisdom, forged from years of watching what happens when you do not guard your inner fire. You also learn that your own mind can be a thief of energy if left unchecked. Worry, regret, the replaying of old arguments. These are silent drains more exhausting than any person. So you watch your thoughts like of growing older with eyes wide open. You do not just exist. You guard the small quiet garden of your soul. You water it only with what brings you life, and you stand watch at its gate, knowing you owe no one an apology for the beauty you choose to protect within its walls. Let your actions and calm presence speak louder than words ever could. This is a lesson you rarely understand when you're young, because youth is a season of declarations. You are eager to announce yourself to the world, what you believe in, what you stand against, what you plan to do, who you intend to become. You feel the need to prove yourself in every conversation, to show that you are right, that you matter, that your voice should be heard. You talk, you explain. You argue your point until your throat is dry. You feel victorious when someone agrees with you, wounded when they don't. You believe your words alone can convince people to see your heart, respect your mind, admire your character. But life, patient as it is, reveals the truth in its own time. Words are easy. They slip from the tongue with barely a cost. They impress for a moment, but they fade just as quickly, replaced by new noise. It takes years, decades often, to understand that words, though powerful, mean little without the weight of your actions behind them. Promises dissolve if you do not live them. Loud declarations grow empty if they are not rooted in quiet integrity. And so, as you grow older, you find yourself speaking less about who you are and simply becoming it instead. There is a quiet strength in actions that cannot be undone by gossip or doubt. When you live gently but firmly by your own values, you need not convince anyone with elaborate speeches. Your life speaks for you in moments you don't even see, in how you keep your word when no one is watching, in how you treat people who have nothing to offer you, in how you choose stillness over drama, kindness over cruelty, simplicity over excess. And there is something about this quiet way of moving through the world that unsettles those who live on noise. They wonder why you do not react when provoked. They watch how you smile without explaining yourself, how you help without boasting, how you refuse to join the petty quarrels that once so easily drew you in. Your calm becomes a mirror in which other people see their own restlessness. Your silence unsettles them because it cannot be controlled, cannot be baited, cannot be made to dance for approval. Old age is the perfect ground for this kind of presence. By now, you know the futility of arguing to be understood by everyone. You know how exhausting it is to defend your motives to people determined to misread you. So, you stop explaining and start embodying. When you say you value peace, you live it by stepping away from chaos. When you say you value kindness, you show it to those who expect none. When you say you value freedom, you grant it to yourself first, refusing to chain your spirit to the noise of needless battles. In doing this, you become a quiet example for those around you. They learn from your calm more than they ever did from your lectures. Your grandchildren may not remember every word of advice you gave them, but they will remember how your eyes stayed soft when others lost their temper. They will remember the warmth of your steady presence in a room, how your very being made them feel safe. This is the legacy you build, not from words carved in stone, but from small, consistent acts that speak when your mouth does not. This does not mean you never speak at all. There are moments when your words will carry great weight, precisely because you do not throw them away carelessly. When a person known for silence chooses to speak, people listen, because they sense the thought and care behind what is said. When you no longer feel the urge to fill every silence with opinion, your voice becomes rarer and more valuable when you do offer it. You move through your days with a quiet dignity. You let your actions declare your character. You let your calm presence remind people that there is another way to live, one that does not demand constant explanation, one that does not rise and fall on the approval of passing crowds. You show, simply by existing as you are, that a peaceful life is possible, that strength can be soft, that truth does not shout to be believed. And in doing so, you are freed from the burden of performing yourself to the world. You rest more easily at night, knowing you have nothing to prove. You wake lighter, carrying no need to convince, entirely yours, undisturbed, unbothered, and unbound. So much of life before this season is spent in pieces. You belong to your family, your work, your children, your community, your promises. You wear countless faces for countless roles, pouring yourself into tasks that leave you emptied but necessary. There is a beauty in this, in loving, in giving, in building a life woven together by duty and care. But there is also a cost, paid in hours lost to obligations that drain you of your quiet self. When you are young, you imagine freedom is something you win by fighting for it out in the world. You chase it in relationships, careers, adventures, declarations of independence that still somehow bind you to expectations. You think freedom means doing anything you want, but life shows you that as long as you are tangled in what others expect of you, true freedom is postponed again and again. Then one day, sudden emptiness at first. People who once needed you drift away. Routines you clung to fade. The busyness that once gave you a sense of purpose dissolves. It can feel unsettling, like the ground has dropped out from under you. But if you stand still in that quiet, you begin to sense something remarkable beneath the surface. The soft, spacious truth that you are yours again. This is the final, often overlooked gift of old age, the return of your own soul to your own hands. No longer must you apologize for needing time alone. No longer must you negotiate your rest, your silence, your boundaries. The phone does not ring so much anymore. The door stays closed more often than not. You wake when you wish, sleep when you wish, eat when you wish. The small rhythms of the day no longer dictated by anyone's hunger but your own. This freedom is not noisy or grand. It is not the wild freedom of youth, chasing thrill after thrill. It is quieter, more precious, more subtle. It is the freedom to choose a slow morning over a frantic one, to savor a meal without rush, to sit by a window and watch the rain fall without feeling guilty for wasting time. It is the freedom to feel your own breath, your own thoughts, your own simple pleasures, unbothered by a world that always wants more from you. You, being entirely yours, means you do not explain your choices. If you wish to spend all day in the garden pulling weeds, you do. If you wish to close the door and read until dusk, you do. If you wish to sit in stillness with no company but the gentle hum of your own heartbeat, you do. And you owe no one a reason for this sacred retreat into yourself. The beauty of this time is that it softens your sharp edges. You realize how much of life's pain came from resisting what is. Now you flow more easily. You see that your value was never in how busy you were or how much you gave to those who never returned it. Your value is simply in your being. A soul at ease, no longer chained to the noise of other people's demands. And this is the paradox of the final gift. When you claim this undisturbed space for yourself, you often find that what you give back to the world becomes purer, freer, and more meaningful. You smile more sincerely. You listen without resentment because you choose when to listen. You love from a place of fullness, not sacrifice. Your presence alone becomes a blessing because you are no longer scattered. You are whole. Some people may not understand this kind of freedom. They might pity your solitude, mistake your silence for sadness, but what they do not see is the deep contentment in your chest, a calm that needs nothing loud to announce itself. You are no longer caught in the exhausting chase to prove your worth. You do not crave validation. You do not fear missing out. You sit in the gentle truth that nothing outside you is needed to complete you. You hold this final gift with tenderness. You guard it like a lamp that lights your last years with quiet warmth. You know now that you are not missing anything. In fact, you have gained everything that truly matters. Your days belong to you. Your peace belongs to you. Your breath belongs to you. You are entirely yours, undisturbed, unbothered, unbound. And in this simple, silent freedom, you find the deepest joy you have been seeking all along. In the end, the quiet wisdom of old age teaches us a truth that so many spend a lifetime trying to outrun, that the peace we seek was never somewhere out there in the noise and the applause, but always waiting within us in the soft corners we neglected while we were too busy proving, explaining, pleasing, and performing. When you reach this season of life, you are invited to come home to yourself, to gather up the scattered pieces you gave away so freely and hold them gently, without shame, without regret. You see clearly now how precious your time truly is, how limited your energy has always been, and how vital it is to protect the sanctuary of your mind and spirit. Silence becomes your companion Not because you have nothing to say, but because you have learned that not everything deserves your voice. Solitude becomes your refuge, not because you are unloved, but because you finally love your own company enough to sit with it fully. You do not waste these final years defending yourself to people who misunderstand you, nor do you spend your days carrying the heavy weight of old obligations that no longer fit your soul. Instead, you move through the world gently but firmly, letting your actions, your calm, your presence speak where words once failed you. You rest when you need to. You walk away when you must. You speak when it matters, and remain silent when it does not. You owe no one an explanation for this sacred return to self. You understand now that peace is not given to you by others. It is claimed and guarded by you alone. In this final freedom you are whole, unbothered by noise, untangled from demands, unbound from the illusions that kept you restless for so long. Sit quietly beneath your own sky. Watch the sun set without hurry. Listen to your own breath in the hush of your days. This is not loneliness. This is not retreat. This is the fullness of a life finally lived on your own terms, silent, focused, deeply yours. And that, at last, is enough.